Hello students, I am back with a new prose from Beehive. The name of the prose is The Sound of Music. Now this prose has two parts. The first one is about Evelyn Glennie and the second part is about Bismillah Khan. So both these stories are biographies. Biographies are stories of real people written by someone else. An autobiography is written by the person himself. So these two stories are biographies. The first story we are going to read is about Evelyn Glennie and it's written by Deborah Cowley. Deborah Cowley was born in India and she was brought up in Toronto. She graduated in English from the University of Western Ontario and then she moved to Ottawa for a job. She has travelled worldwide and has written more than 100 articles for different editions of the Reader's Digest, and of which many are being translated into dozens of languages. So let's get started with the story. The name of the story is Evelyn Glennie Listens to Sound Without Hearing It. The name itself tells us that this story is going to be interesting. At the same time, it's going to be very inspirational. So let's start the prose. God may have taken her hearing, but He has given her back something extraordinary. What we hear, she feels far more deeply than any of us. That is why she expresses music so beautifully. So this is an extract from the story itself, given in the very first lines of the prose. So here goes the prose. Rush hour crowds jostle for position on the underground train platform. A slight girl looking younger than her 17 years was nervous yet excited as she felt the vibrations of the approaching train. So here we are talking about Evelyn Glennie. She was at a railway platform and it was very crowded. She is described as this thin slight girl who is not more than 17 years, and she was very nervous and yet she was excited as she was able to feel the vibrations of the train. Why to feel the vibrations? Because she was deaf. She was absolutely deaf. So then it was her first day at the prestigious Royal Academy of Music in London and daunting enough for any teenager fresh from a Scottish farm. So here we come to know that Evelyn was from Scotland and she was going to the prestigious Academy of Music in London, and she was a bit tensed about going to London. Why? Because she was a girl from Scotland and Scotland is a very calm place. And London, as we all know, it's a very busy place. The life is fast in London. But this aspiring musician faced a bigger challenge than most. She was profoundly deaf. What was the challenge faced by Evelyn? She was deaf. Profoundly means completely, absolutely deaf. So in the very beginning of the chapter, we get to know that Evelyn was going to the prestigious Academy of Music in London and she was a bit tensed because London is a fast-paced place and she was also deaf. So although Evelyn was profoundly deaf, she was absolute deaf, but still she was going to achieve what she has dreamt of. So in the next paragraph, the writer says, Evelyn Glennie's loss of hearing had been gradual. Her mother remembers noticing something was wrong when the 8-year-old Evelyn was waiting to play the piano. They called her name and she didn't move. I suddenly realized she hadn't heard, says Isabel Glennie. So Isabel Glennie is the name of Evelyn Glennie's mother. What she says, that at the age of 8, when she was waiting to play the piano and when they called her name, she did not move. At that time, her mother realized that something was wrong with Evelyn. For quite a while, Evelyn managed to conceal her growing deafness from friends and teachers. But by the time she was 11, her marks had deteriorated and her headmistress urged her parents to take her to a specialist. So what happened? Evelyn Glennie's mother realized that something was wrong with Evelyn Glennie at the age of 8, but her deafness was not a sudden thing. It was gradual. So for some time when her deafness was growing, she hid it from her friends and teachers. It's a normal thing for a little girl to hide her disabilities, right? As she was scared of how people will react to her deafness. As she was 11, her marks started deteriorating, which means her marks reduced. And at that time, the headmistress urged her parents to take her to a specialist or a doctor. Hello dear students, welcome to the class. Today we are doing a prose from your book Moments. The title of the prose is The Adventures of Toto. It is written by Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond was born on 19th May 1934 and he is an Indian author of British descent. He lives with his adopted family in Mussoorie, India. The Indian Council for Child Education has recognized his role in the growth of children's literature in India. He was awarded the Sahitya Academy Award in 1992 for Our Trees Still Grow in Dehradun, his novel in English. He was awarded the Padma Shri in 1999 and the Padma Bhushan in 2014. Bond experimented with different genres. Early works include fiction, short stories, novel, with some being autobiographical. Later he tried out non-fiction, romance and books for children. So children, this was about Ruskin Bond. Now let us begin with the story. The story is about Toto. Toto is a monkey, a mischievous monkey. So in this prose, we will find grandfather, Toto, the narrator and grandmother. So grandfather was very fond of animals. He had his little zoo and he wanted to add Toto to his mini zoo. Grandmother on the other hand was a very kind woman, but she was not in favor of grandfather's keeping the animals at home. So the story begins when grandfather bought Toto from a Tonga driver. Tonga means, in Hindi we call it Tanga, which is driven by horses. So Toto was bought by grandfather for 5 rupees from a Tonga driver who used to tie him to a large feeding container. When the narrator's grandfather saw the monkey, he had a desire to add him to the collection of animals which he had in his zoo at home. The writer gives a description of Toto. Toto had bright, shiny eyes which were full of mischief. The eyebrows were deeply set on his face. His teeth were like pearls. Toto's hands were dry and wrinkled as if they had been dried in the sun like pickled vegetables. He had a very long tail. The writer's grandfather thought that the tail added to the good looks of an animal. Toto's tail was like a third hand for him. It helped him hang from the branch of a tree. He also used it to lift objects which were beyond his hand's reach. Grandmother was against the grandfather's attitude of bringing new pets home. So grandfather thought that they would conceal this fact, means they would hide this fact from grandmother until she was in a good mood. The writer and his grandfather secured Toto in a little cupboard in the writer's room. In order to be sure that Toto did not escape, they tied him to a hook in the wall. So after leaving Toto in the writer's room, grandfather and the writer came out of the room, and after a few hours they again went to the room. And what they found out? They were shocked to find that Toto had torn the decorative wallpaper. He had broken the hook and had escaped from his binding. Also, he tore the writer's blazer into thin pieces. Grandfather said that if they would have given him more time, he would have tied the thin pieces of writer's torn blazer into a rope and would have escaped out of the window. So after all this mischief, Toto was shifted to the servant quarter. He was put in a cage. So Toto was now living with other pets in grandfather's zoo. Now, grandfather's zoo had a tortoise, a pair of rabbits, a squirrel, and the narrator's pet goat. Toto was very mischievous. He did not let the animals sleep at night. Grandfather had to leave for Saharanpur the next day. He decided to take Toto along as he was unmanageable. As grandmother did not know about Toto and the narrator was young to take care of Toto, so grandfather thought that it would be best that he would take him along to Saharanpur. The narrator wanted to accompany his grandfather but was very disappointed as he could not accompany him. His grandfather narrated the happenings of the trip to him later. He had got a special bag for Toto. It was made of strong material, canvas. He placed some dry grass at the bottom of the bag. On the trip, the bag would be Toto's home as he would live in it. The bag had a zipper on the top of it. The writer's grandfather ensured that when the bag was closed, Toto would not be able to escape out of it. Still, Toto was mischievous, so he made unsuccessful attempts to come out of the bag. He was jumping inside the bag, so due to which many times the bag would roll on the floor or it would certainly jump in the air. These movements were noticed by the people on the railway platform and made them curious to know what was inside the bag. At the Saharanpur railway station, the writer's grandfather was taking out his ticket to cross the turnstile. At that time, Toto peeked out of the bag and smiled at the ticket collector. So, Toto somehow managed to come out of the bag and he was smiling at the ticket collector. Now, the ticket collector was shocked. He was astonished to see a monkey in grandfather's bag. The ticket collector quickly recovered and asked grandfather to pay the ticket money for traveling with a dog. Grandfather was upset with this, and in order to take revenge from the ticket collector, he took out his pet tortoise from his pocket. He asked if he was supposed to buy a ticket for the tortoise as well. The ticket collector took a close look at the tortoise, pushed it slightly and announced that grandfather was not required to buy a ticket for it as it did not fall in the category of a dog. So after grandfather returned from the trip, grandmother finally came to know of Toto's presence in the house. So after knowing about him, she allotted him space in the stable along with the family donkey Nana. The name of the donkey was Nana. On the first night in the stable, grandfather visited Toto. He found Nana restless, pulling its rope in order to stay away from the heap of hay. Grandfather hit Nana on the back in order to stop it. Nana jumped back with a jerk and Toto was dragged along with her. So Toto had tied itself to Nana and Toto was annoying Nana.